Hello, good afternoon. We have the first slide, please. So I used to be a programmer before going to law school. So when I became a lawyer and then later an educator, I told myself, that I'm now supposed to be a respectable person, and I'm already way past that previous life, and I would never have to deal with the implementation details of servers and applications ever again. Right? That is beyond. That is beneath me now, supposedly. And then, of course, the pandemic, came, and right now, I am currently managing a system with thousands of learners, thousands of applicants, hundreds of teachers. So this is probably the largest installed base of users and servers and machines that I've ever had to manage. So life is strange that way. I suppose that's the thing. We all have our own plans, our own conceptions of what we ought to be as lawyers, as teachers, how we ought to run our organizations, and then how to teach law. But then reality confronts you, right? And there's no arguing against reality. Right? We have to adjust. So I was tasked to describe the UP law experience in coping the pandemic. I don't want this to become smug and self-congratulatory, chest thumping. I think it was very contingent. I think we were very lucky. We had people in place that we were able to form a team. We had administrators that empowered us. We had the talent and we had the basic resources. But there's a sense of contingency to it. But now that things are starting to normalize and we don't have to move from crisis to crisis, I think we can afford some self-reflection. So I will share some of the specific tactical lessons, but I also hope to share, my own reflections, a model for thinking about legal education and its future. Next slide, please. So before the pandemic rolled into the Philippines, one of my last face-to-face classes with an LLM class on financial law, we were talking about risk management, and one of the things in risk management is the concept of a black swan. A black swan, in risk management terms, is an unpredictable event that is beyond what is normally expected. It's rare. Nevertheless, it has the potential to have severe consequences. They are characterized by extreme rarity, but severe impact, and the widespread insistence on hindsight that they were obvious. So a black swan could include a once in a lifetime stock market crash and economic depression. That's what we were talking about. A flood or superstorm comes 20, 50 years. Or a pandemic, a global pandemic that could lock down civilization, disrupt institutions, and the way we've done legal education for the past 100 years. Next slide, please. There was a counter. Next slide. The rhino. Next slide. Okay. So there was the counter argument that what we had wasn't a black swan, but a gray rhino. So a gray rhino, on the other hand, are those big, obvious risks, right? They're very likely. Right? They're not rare. They're obvious, right? But just like a rhino, they are big, but they seem to be slow and stationary, right? But all of a sudden, once you're too close and once they start running after you, it'll be too late. We know that these problems exist. We know the devastating consequences of failing to solve them. In the case of climate change, environmental degradation, rising inequality, the debt crisis, various debt crises we've been having. So in the case of the pandemic, the argument could be made that at a basic level, we ought to have known what was coming. We have destroyed ecological niches, and making contact with wild animals and humans more likely, and thus leading to greater chances of cross infection. But for some reason, we continue to wallow in denial and inaction. In class, we were talking about the theories of Kahneman and Tversky about how humans have built-in instinct for probability and risk management, but we're not that good when it comes to edge cases like black swans and gray rhinos. So law schools, like many other human institutions, like governments, aren't really designed to look for and respond to these edge cases, right? In the law, we have an averaging function, right? What is the normal, average, reasonable person? We try to flatten out into these very predictable categories. So, if not for anything else, the pandemic and the lockdowns exposed just how bad our institutions and our tools are. In that sense, crises are revelatory, right? We were able to have the opportunity to realize what didn't work. Right? We finally got to realize who was essential. Right? Remember that debate of what activities are essential and not essential, and it was humbling to realize that some of us are not that essential after all. Right? It gave us a shock. That realization that our methods and our systems are more fragile than we thought. And we bought those lessons very dearly. And I hope we don't move on too easily from those lessons. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. So, if I were to do it all over again, right? Lessons learned. What would be the major components? What are the specific tactical things that I hope to implement? Right. First is we need to have a learning management system already in place, day one. Right. I remember during those dark early days we were swapping notes on how to carry on with our educational functions, and lots of suggestions, and I heard from someone who was trying to carry out the class through an email thread, through email, right? And I thought, that is so wild, right? Because email was built for something else, right? Email was built for immediate communication. It's structured to give you this line by line, moment to moment updates. That's not the way we usually structure our content, our classes, right? Same thing with chat, right? You get the text, you get the message for a few seconds, and then it scrolls past you, right? So it's possible, but it's very hard to maintain that coherence and control through some of those platforms. So a learning management system would at least allow an educator to impose some structure, to have a sense of persistence and prioritization. And a learning management system would be able to segregate the class into roles and levels of access, right? Which is not possible may not be possible through chat. And of course, an LMS would have mechanisms for private feedback, right? You can't announce to the whole chat thread, right? I'm giving you this grade, right? What is the best LMS? The best LMS is the one your organization can use and support. Right? I've talked to various vendors already. It all goes it all goes down to what you can use, what's the path of least resistance, right? In the case of UP, we went with Moodle, not because of we were sold into it, but it just so happened that we already had Moodle, right? A flavor of Moodle at the university level. I and a couple of teachers were already trained with it, so we just went with what we knew, right? So that goes for the other platforms. So if I were to do it all over again, even before the emergency, I would have insisted that pretty much every aspect that we can of classes should have a digital shadow or a digital mirror. So we have students on lists. They've been enrolled in files. Then they've already been enrolled in our LMS automatically. You have materials that you gave away to your class. You have materials in the reserve section of the library. Those materials should also be online. You have activities that you're planning to give, right? That you plan to announce in class. Those should also be mirrored in your LMS, right? And of course, what we also struggled with was making library resources available. That came in. We had some delay in making library resources available to students. So that should have been available day one. Right. Next slide, please. Sustaining the effort, I think, would require a support team. Right. It's not enough to roll out the technology. Right. Your organization should already have a support team in place. So we had to grow our IT team from two people essentially to almost a dozen now, right? So they're responsible for the LMS. They're responsible for online live events. They're responsible for hybrid events, right? So you need to have techs. Right? You need to have. People tend to underestimate, the support function, right? There is supposed to be a proper ratio between the number of users and the number of support techs that you have available. The most common ratio that I keep seeing online is 70-1, right? So you should have 70 people ready to support, right? For one person, support person, ready to support for every 70 persons in your organization, right? Because vendors would insist that the technology is intuitive, that it always works. It won't. Things will always go wrong, and you can imagine. Can you imagine the support? The kind of user that you have to support. These are law students. These are lawyers. These are law professors, right? So you need to have a very robust and responsive support organization. I remember when we were rolling out the online LAE, online admissions exam. So can you imagine thousands upon thousands of students all over the country, and they're stressing about their future, right? Everything could ride on this one test. You can't expect them to calmly just read the manual and find out for themselves. They need help right now, and you need to have the support organization ready, right? So the same thing must happen for our remote bar exams. It was their future on the line, so they had to. We had to be responsive, right? So other tools that we had to acquire. We need to find a platform for secure exams. We ended up with ExamSoft because of the bar, right? So the bar is using that, so we might as well standardize around that. We needed to have anti-plagiarism software. We acquired licenses from Turnitin because students became more creative when it came to plagiarism, right? Because they were emboldened by the new environment. We needed to get our own video platform, our own private YouTube, right? Because we needed to upload videos, but some teachers did not want their content on YouTube. So we had to establish our own walled garden where the videos can be available to some people, but not the general public. What I most missed out on, what I failed to do, or I couldn't quite figure out how to do it, was how to replicate the community experience through our platforms. I certainly offered it to the students. I said, so we have an extra Zoom account, webinar account just for you. You can run your program. You can run community cable type programs. You can have your forums there. You can I can give you a server for your discussion boards, whatever. They did not take on the offer, but I guess that their community is out there. Right? They did not want their community provided in a platform that was given to them by their professors. Right? So I'm hoping that the community is out there. They're using it. It's just that we can't see it. Right? Okay. Next slide, please. And of course, I already mentioned this earlier. We were lucky to have a team, as well as administrators leaders who empowered us. I think it's not just a matter of rolling out the right technology. I think the most important tactical thing I can share is that it's all about building the right team, getting the right people. All of a sudden, we needed to hire a different kind of talent. Before we needed administrators, we needed lawyers and teachers, and now we had to figure out how to source talent when it comes to network and systems administration. We needed to hire programmers. We needed to hire illustrators and photographers and video editors, right? At the same time, we try to upskill, staff. We train them how to, we train them any way we could, how to update the websites, how to operate, Zoom rooms. But of course, I think more is needed to upscale the current staff. And then, of course, since we're now hiring new kinds of talent, right? There now comes the issue of retaining them, especially post-pandemic. If you can consider this post-pandemic. Because, for example, in the UP College of Law, in the UP Law Center, we have defined, right? We have defined the roles, right, of our staff. It's all there with the Civil Service Commission, right? We have defined their roles. And we have defined the parameters for their development and their advancement, for their promotion, right? So if you're a researcher, right, you have a clear path to promotion. You take you publish, you take advanced degrees, right, and you can be promoted, right? What is the path for promotion of a programmer in the UP Law Center? What is the path for promotion of an artist? I had to let go of a very talented illustrator because, she was honest about it. I really enjoyed the work, but I don't see a path forward for me because, the promotion path tells me that I have to take a master's in a social science related field. I'm an artist. Right? I can't, I can't be, made to, to waste my time in a master's degree in a field that I'm not, I'm not interested in. So we'll need to, recalibrate, right, the path forward for the right kind of talent that we need to hire, right. I also told, I think the dean that. And also the new dean that I had to brief them, and I told them that, congratulations, you are now the proud owner of a media and technology organization, right? You're essentially a tech startup now. You're essentially a media organization, and that means that in addition to the problem of sourcing talent, you have new problems and new kinds of decisions to make. Right, that you didn't have to make before, right? You're a media organization now. You're a communications organization now. So, now you have to worry about the fonts in your website. Now you have to worry about branding guidelines, right? You're a technology organization now. So you have to worry about bandwidth. You have to worry about backups. You have to worry about security, right? You have new challenges to deal with, right? Next slide, please. So now that we're sort of transitioning to normality, right? There's the attractive idea that maybe we should draw down, on the capabilities that we've built. Draw down on online classes, draw down on the technology infrastructure and the new hires. What I can say is that it did get us through, but there are also unique advantages to it that we can carry forward. It's accessible, right? I remember, going through the messages of people who were taking our LAE, and some of them were grateful that I would never have had the opportunity to take the LAE. Never have had the opportunity to attend classes if it wasn't for these things being available online, right? There's a sense of immediacy. There's a sense of convenience, right? There were some teachers who were saying, if I had to go through traffic, right, forget about it. 2 hours, Manila traffic, right? I won't have the energy to teach, anywhere else. And of course, it's a quick and cheap way to internationalize your programs. Right? All of a sudden, right? You have a forum. You take in a foreign scholar through Zoom, right? And you have you can claim that you have you had an international forum. And of course, the virus or viruses are still out there. We hope, I certainly hope that we don't have to go through anything as severe as we had to go through, but that's still very possible, I think. Next slide, please. And of course, recently I've been talking to some of my old teachers, and one in particular said that, he intends to go back to the old method, to the classic method of teaching law. It's better, if not different. Law has to be hard, right? Legal education has to be hard, and students have to earn it, right? And if they didn't go through the rigors of the old method, then somehow, their education is invalid, right? And since technology makes it easy, therefore, right, it wasn't for real, right? So, so my response to that is to point to the old industry of ice harvesting. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So, for the longest time, right? The only way to get ice for your cold drinks was to harvest ice physically from frozen rivers or lakes. I went down a rabbit hole on this. There were tools, there were journals, there were industry associations. It was hard, dangerous work. They had to cut the ice, transport it quickly, and store it in special places called ice houses. It was also very expensive, which meant that fresh ice was something only the rich could enjoy. Of course, we know now that this entire industry, with all its traditions and all its know-how, right, wiped out by industrial refrigeration and personal, home refrigeration. So, is anyone here willing to take up the cause of the ice harvesting industry, right? And all its honorable, honest hard work, right? And all its knowledge and all its know-how, right? All its tradition, right? Is anyone willing to argue that, just because you got your ice from a refrigerator, it's somehow not authentic, right? That you did not deserve your cold drinks, right? Of course not. I think the system that we have now for ice production is not perfect. There was the issue of CFCs before, but at some point, we moved on, and we never looked back. We had to build on what we have now. We're not going back to this. And besides the romantic notion that you are getting ice from good old Mother Nature, ice from these sources wasn't necessarily better. You're harvesting ice from the top of open bodies of water, right? So not surprisingly, they found pollutants and parasites in that pure natural ice, right? We can re-examine our old methods. Were they really that good, right? Or are they loaded with toxins like assumptions about hierarchy, right? Are they loaded with parasites, right? As well, right? So, next slide, please. So, what are we supposed to do? I would like to draw inspiration from that other trade of mine, computers and computer programming, because for good or bad, we have to admit that this field made an impact and changed the way we communicate, the way we work and play. So the field developed systems incrementally, right? First, we had to build the physical computers, and we had to talk to them, through machine language, which was not, not optimal, right? But then we built. Julius Stan is calling me. The field built layers of abstraction, on top of those machines, right? And as one layer became more established and commodified, it became easier, right? Which meant that we could stop worrying about the lower levels and build higher levels to this structure, right? There was a time when we were trying to build hardware, right? Which processor should we choose? Which motherboard architecture should we choose? But now that problem is solved, right? We never had to worry about it, right? We used to worry about what operating system should we install. Now that problem is mostly solved, right? And so we could move, because we solved the lower level problems, we could move on to the more interesting, to the more valuable problems, like building applications, building artificial intelligence, right? If you want to specialize, if you think that there are still problems in the lower levels, of course you can still specialize, but mostly, we've progressed and we've built this magnificent structure, your apps, the internet, because we've solved the lower level problems first. That's done, and now we can move on to the more valuable problems. And this has also changed the way they teach computer science in schools. right? So we have some, they have some discussion about, architecture and operating systems, at the beginning, right? Short discussion, and then that's done. We will devote the rest of the semester, to solving the higher level problems. Right? You can still take an elective on operating system design, right? But that's only if you want to specialize, right? So the canonical stuff, right, is available in a standardized reference or an online lecture that you can watch before classes. Right? So I can imagine, next slide please, that as lawyers, we are also building a system, hopefully with multiple levels. Right now, we still dedicate most of our time with basic rules, right? Making sure that they understand the basic rules, making sure that they are capable of interpretation, right? Which, is under threat by AI. I'm not sure if you've come across open Chat GPT or Open AI. If you try to ask it a legal question now, right? It's oriented towards U.S. law mostly. I suppose it's only a matter of time before you can learn other laws. But it's getting better. It's not quite there yet, but it keeps getting better every time, right? And so, you can see, you can see from the performance of these systems that, maybe knowing the basic rules, maybe memorizing the basic rules, and maybe making the basic interpretations, that's actually the lower levels of the tier, right? The value, the more interesting stuff is on top of this structure, right? Technology can help us ease the delivery of the basic levels, right? So what then will our law students do? What are we freeing up their time for? Hopefully, we can make them, busy with better things, right? That occur on top of this stack, right? Thinking about models and theories that explain, the law or help with implementation. Interdisciplinary work, connecting the law with other fields, right? Because the computer it's not there yet. It's even harder, right? And then, who knows what else? But, we can set them up to deal with better things. And we'll need them to deal with better things. We'll need all that free time and brain power from them because, next slide please. Next slide, please. Yeah. Oh. Well, we're hoping to free them up, so that they can deal with higher order problems, because the black swans and the gray rhinos are still out there, and there ought to be a way for legal thought, for legal technology to help solve some of these pressing problems. So that is why I think it's very important to retain, efforts like LEAP and maintaining the kind of space and time and resources necessary to look ahead of the curve, right? You need to have people, looking, not just maintaining the infrastructure that we have, but looking ahead, right, to what's next. What are the higher order problems that we can dedicate ourselves to? So, final slide. Thank you.